Thank you for joining me for this week's Honey from the Word. Today's devotion is entitled, When Everything Shakes, God Doesn't, from Psalms chapter 46, verses 1 through 7. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, even though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though its waters roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with its swelling, Selah. There is a river whose streams shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacle of the Most High. God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved. God shall help her just at the break of dawn. The nations raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice. The earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah. So what's shaking in your life right now? I'm not talking about the small inconveniences, but the real tremors. The thing that keeps you up at night. The relationship that feels fragile, the diagnosis, the financial pressure, the uncertainty about what's next. We all have something, and if we're honest, sometimes it feels like the ground itself isn't as solid as we thought. That's exactly where this psalm meets us. Psalms 46 was written for the sons of Korah, a group of Levitical musicians who served in Israel's worship. Many scholars believe this psalm was composed in response to a real national crisis, possibly the threat of invasion. The language isn't hypothetical. The earth is moving. Mountains are falling into the sea. Nations are raging, and kingdoms are shaking. This isn't a gentle bedtime prayer. It's a psalm for the worst days of your life. And notice, the psalm doesn't start with, here's how to fix it. It starts with a declaration about who God is. There are three anchors for when life shakes. First of all, God is present and not distance. A very present help in trouble, it says in verse 1. The Hebrew phrase here is rich. The word translated very present carries the idea of being abundantly found. God isn't hard to locate in your crises. He's not hiding. He's not watching from a distance, arms crossed, waiting to see how you handle it. He is exceedingly, overwhelmingly present in your trouble. Sometimes we feel like God is far away, but that feeling isn't the truth. The truth is He's closer in your pain than He's ever been. He's the God who draws near to the brokenhearted. He's the God who says, I will never leave you nor forsake you, Hebrews 13:5. Second of all, God is steady when nothing else is. Though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved, verse 2 and verse 5. Do you see the contrast? Everything that looks permanent, the earth, the mountains, is being uprooted. But the city of God, the place where God dwells, shall not be moved. Why? Because of the city's strength, because of who is in the midst of it. You and I don't stay steady because we're tough. We stay steady because God is in us. The same God who spoke and the earth melted, in verse 6, that God has made His home in your life by His Spirit. The world can shake. Your circumstances can shift overnight. But if God is in the midst of you, you are not coming undone. You may feel like it, but you're not. God is enough even before dawn. God shall help her just at the break of dawn, in verse 5. I love this phrase. It doesn't say that God helps immediately. It says He helps at the break of dawn. That means there's a night. There's a waiting period. There's a stretch where the darkness is real and the help hasn't shown up yet. But oh my, the dawn is coming. God's time isn't always our timing, but His help is never late. The night may feel long, but it's not permanent. Morning is built into God's plan for your situation. And notice the psalm ends with a name for God that changes everything. The God of Jacob, verse 7. Why Jacob? Because Jacob was a liar, a schemer, a man who wrestled with God and walked away limping, and yet God chose to be his God. This isn't a God for the perfect. This is a God for the struggling, the broken, the ones who've made a mess of things. He's the God of Jacob, and He's your refuge too. We see that word Selah. It means pause and breathe. The word Selah appears twice in this passage. Scholars aren't entirely sure what it means. It may be a musical instruction, a call to pause, or a marker for reflection. But here's what we know. The psalmist thought this truth was so important that he told us to stop and let it sink in. So let's do that. God is your refuge, a safe place when there's nowhere safe. God is your strength when you have none left. God is present, not far, not distracted, not late. God is steady when the mountains fall. God is enough, even in the long night before dawn. So you don't need the shaking to stop to find peace. You just need to remember who's with you in the shaking. The world will tell you that peace comes when your circumstances settle down. The Psalm says something different. Peace comes when you remember that God is in the midst of you, right now, in the middle of the mess. You can be in the storm and still be at rest. Not because you're pretending it's not hard, but because you know the one who holds the mountains in place. So when things are shaky, don't forget that God is right there. May God bless you this week.